Ever watched your own dignity get slaughtered with champagne and hashtags? I have. The rooftop bar overlooked downtown Cleveland, all glass and steel pretension, the kind of place where they charge $18 for a martini and call it artisanal. Perfect setting for what Ayla called our engagement party. What I now call the night I learned exactly what my fiancé thought of me. My name is Porter Kellor, 37 years old, systems technician for the city's water treatment facility. Not glamorous, but steady work that keeps the taps running for 500,000 people. Ayla Derric, my soon-to-be ex-fiancée, works in social media PR. She spends her days making rich people look relatable online. Apparently, she thought I was her biggest challenge yet. The party was her idea. We need to celebrate properly, she said, which meant inviting everyone she knew and posting it all over Instagram. Her friends clustered around the bar like designer vultures, Tasha with her sharp bob and sharper tongue, Lexi with her phone permanently attached to her hand, filming everything for her followers. They treated me like furniture most nights, but tonight felt different. Tonight, they kept glancing at me and giggling. I should have seen it coming when Ayla grabbed the microphone from the DJ booth. She was 3 drinks in, that dangerous territory where her filter disappeared but her confidence soared. The room quieted as she tapped the mic. Everyone, I want to make a toast to my amazing fiancé, Porter. Polite applause. I raised my beer bottle thinking this was standard engagement party stuff. How wrong I was. You know, when I tell people about Porter, they always ask me the same thing, what does he do? And I have to explain that he's in, municipal water management. She paused for effect, letting the snickers build. Which is a fancy way of saying he fixes pipes for the city. The laughter got louder. Tasha was recording on her phone now, probably already planning which hashtags to use. I felt my face heating up, but I kept smiling. Maybe this was just awkward humor. Maybe she'd pivot to something sweet. And then they ask about the salary and, well, she made an exaggerated grimace. Let's just say I'm definitely marrying down, financially speaking. But hey, love conquers all, right? Even when your fiancé makes less in a year than I spend on handbags. The room erupted. Her friends were practically falling over themselves, laughing. Lexi had her live stream going, broadcasting my humiliation to however many followers she had. Even Ayla's parents looked uncomfortable, Dr. Derric staring into his wine glass, Mrs. Derric reaching for another drink. But seriously, Ayla continued, riding the wave of laughter, Porter is so reliable, like a Honda Civic. Not exciting, not impressive, but he'll get you where you need to go. Eventually. That's when something inside me snapped. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. Crystal clear, ice-cold understanding of exactly who I was marrying and exactly what she thought of me. I was the punchline, but at least the drinks were free. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound cut through the laughter like a blade. Conversations died as heads turned toward me. Ayla was still holding the microphone, her smile faltering as she realized the room's attention had shifted. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet space. "Could I borrow that for a second?" Ayla's eyes narrowed slightly, but she was trapped by social convention. You can't refuse to hand over a microphone at your own engagement party when your fiancé asks politely. She passed it to me with a nervous laugh. "Porter wants to say something sweet, I'm sure," she said, trying to regain control of the moment. I looked out at the faces staring back at me, Tasha and Lexi with their phones still recording. Ayla's parents looking mortified. A few work colleagues I'd invited, probably wondering if they should start looking for the exits. And Gil, my best friend since high school, standing by the bar with the expression that said he knew exactly what was coming. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I said into the microphone. My voice was steady, conversational. "I know you're all expecting a romantic speech about love and commitment and how lucky I am to have found Ayla." Murmurs of agreement. Ayla's smile was getting more forced by the second. But instead, I want to talk about respect, about partnership, about what it means when someone you love decides to humiliate you in front of everyone you know for a few laughs and some social media content. The murmurs stopped. You could have heard a pin drop in that overpriced rooftop bar. Ayla just told you all that I'm boring, poor, and beneath her, that marrying me is settling, that I'm like a Honda Civic, reliable but nothing special. I paused, looking directly at her. Her face had gone pale under her carefully applied makeup. And you know what? She's absolutely right about one thing. I am reliable. I pulled out my phone, thumb already moving across the screen. Reliable enough to have booked all our wedding vendors under my name. Reliable enough to have handled all the deposits and contracts. And reliable enough to cancel everything when I realize I'm about to marry someone who sees me as a charity case. I held up my phone so the screen was visible to the crowd. Venue cancellation, sent. Catering cancellation, sent. Photography, flowers, music, transportation, all canceled. The wedding is off. The silence stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. "Porter, what are you doing?" Ayla grabbed for the microphone, but I stepped back, still speaking into it. "I'm being reliable, sweetheart, just like you said." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the engagement ring box, setting it on the table next to her half-empty martini glass. "Dr. and Mrs. Derric, the deposits will be refunded to my account within 3 to 5 business days. No one needs to wait for wedding invitations anymore." Tasha was frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to figure out if this was going viral yet. Lexi had stopped recording, her mouth hanging open like a fish. Several guests were already heading for the elevators. "Thank you all for coming," I said, setting the microphone down on the table with a soft thunk. "Have a wonderful evening." I walked toward the exit, the crowd parting like I was radioactive. As I passed Gil at the bar, he fell into step beside me without a word. We made it to the elevator before Ayla found her voice again. "Porter! Porter, get back here! You can't just—" The elevator doors closed on her shouting. Gil and I rode down 40 floors in complete silence. On the street, Gil finally spoke. Well, that was something. "Honda Civic," I said, pulling out my phone to call a cab. She compared me to a Honda Civic. Could have been worse. Could have been a Prius. That got a laugh out of me, the first genuine emotion I'd felt all evening. "Want to grab a real drink somewhere? Somewhere that doesn't charge $20 for a beer?" "Absolutely. But Porter?" Gil's expression was serious now. "You know this isn't over, right? Ayla's not the type to let something like this go." I thought about her face when I'd canceled everything. The shock, then the rage, then something else. Calculation. Like she was already figuring out how to spin this to her advantage. "Let her try," I said as our cab pulled up. She wanted excitement instead of reliability. I think she's about to get more than she bargained for. As we drove away from the glittering downtown district, I caught a glimpse of the rooftop bar in the side mirror. The party was still going on up there, probably turning into a gossip session about what just happened. By tomorrow, the story would be all over social media. Ayla would make sure of that. She thought this was over. She hadn't even seen the start. The hangover wasn't from alcohol. I'd only had 1 beer at the party before everything went sideways. This was an emotional hangover, the kind that settles into your bones and makes everything feel slightly off-kilter. I woke up in my new studio apartment, a depressing little box I'd rented 3 days after the party, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling that looked remarkably like Ayla's disappointed face. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since I'd turned it back on. 17 missed calls from Ayla, 43 text messages, and a voicemail box that was probably full of her alternating between apologetic and furious. I deleted everything without reading or listening. Some conversations aren't worth having. Gil showed up around noon with coffee and donuts from the place near his auto shop. "You look terrible," he said. handing me a cup of coffee that actually smelled decent. "Thanks. You always know exactly what to say to cheer me up. It's a gift." He settled into the only chair I owned, looking around the sparse apartment. "So, what's the plan? Wallow in self-pity for a few weeks, then try to win her back?" "Win her back?" I almost choked on my coffee. "Gil, did you miss the part where she called me a Honda Civic in front of 50 people?" "I heard it. I also heard you nuke your entire relationship from orbit. Some people might call that an overreaction." I pulled up my phone and showed him the screen. "Look at this." It was Lexi's Instagram story from the night before. The video started right as Ayla was making her toast, capturing every humiliating word, every laugh from her friends, and ending with my cancellation speech. The caption read, "When keeping it real goes wrong. Engagement party fail, dumped at the altar, canceled wedding, drama." It had been viewed over 10,000 times. The comments were a mix of people calling me a hero and others saying I was an unstable psycho. Either way, I was officially a meme. "Hashtag canceled," Gil read aloud. Well, at least she's accurate. It gets better. Check out Ayla's response. I scrolled to Ayla's Instagram profile. She'd posted a carefully crafted statement that managed to paint herself as the victim while making me look like an unhinged lunatic. According to her version of events, I'd had a mental health episode triggered by pre-wedding stress and financial insecurity. She was devastated and asking for privacy during this difficult time. The post had over 300 comments, mostly from her friends and followers offering support and calling me everything from toxic to clearly unstable. A few people who actually knew me had defended me, but they were drowned out by the chorus of sympathy for poor Ayla. "She's good," Gil admitted. "Evil, but good at what she does. PR is her job. She knows exactly how to control a narrative." I tossed my phone onto the coffee table. By the end of the week, I'll be the crazy ex-fiancée who couldn't handle dating a successful woman. Gil was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. "So what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? She's got the platform, the followers, the connections. I fix water pipes for a living. This isn't exactly a fair fight." "Since when do fair fights matter? You think she was fighting fair when she humiliated you in front of everyone you know?" He had a point. I'd been thinking about this all wrong, approaching it like there were rules to follow. But Ayla had already thrown out the rule book when she decided to make me the punchline of her engagement party. "I need to know more," I said finally. "About her, about what she's been up to, about why she felt comfortable enough to torch me in public like that." "Now you're talking. Where do we start?" We started with social media archaeology. Ayla's Instagram went back years, and scrolling through it was like watching someone gradually transform into a different person. The early posts were normal, pictures with friends, food, the occasional selfie. But as her follower count grew, everything became more calculated, more staged, more desperate for engagement. The timeline was interesting. About 8 months ago, right around when we'd started talking seriously about marriage, her posts had shifted. More gym selfies, more lifestyle content, more photos that seemed designed to show off how successful and desirable she was. And in a lot of those gym photos, the same guy kept appearing in the background. Brent Voss, personal trainer at Elite Fitness downtown, 35 years old, according to his very public Instagram profile. The kind of guy who posted daily motivation content and called his followers his fitness family. His bio listed him as a transformation specialist and lifestyle coach, which I was pretty sure meant he helped rich people feel better about themselves while taking their money. "This guy," I said, showing Gil the phone. "He's in way too many of her photos for it to be coincidental." Gil squinted at the screen. "Looks like a tool. But that doesn't mean, look at the timestamps." I pulled up Ayla's calendar app on her laptop, which she'd never bothered to password protect. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months, she has personal training scheduled from 7 to 8 p.m. But look at these Instagram posts. I showed him a series of photos Ayla had posted during those exact time slots. Photos taken at restaurants, bars, coffee shops, nowhere near elite fitness. She's been lying about where she is during her training sessions, Gil said slowly. For 6 months. And look at this. I pulled up Brent's profile again, scrolling to a photo from 3 weeks ago. It was a mirror selfie at Elite Fitness, but in the reflection, you could clearly see Ayla in the background. She was wearing the same outfit from one of her girls' night out posts from the same evening. Gil whistled low. She's been playing you for months, man. The pieces were falling into place now. The sudden interest in fitness, the mysterious Tuesday and Thursday evening plans, the way she'd been so confident humiliating me at the party, like she already had a backup plan in place. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey Porter, this is Tasha. We need to talk. Can you meet me at Grind Coffee on East 4th at 3 p.m.? Tasha, Ayla's best friend and chief enabler, the one who'd been filming my humiliation with obvious glee. What could she possibly want? It's a trap, Gil said immediately. Probably, but I'm curious what kind of trap. Porter, think about this. These people just spent the last 3 days painting you as an unstable psycho online. Meeting with Ayla's best friend is exactly the kind of thing they'll use against you. He was right, but I was tired of being reactive, tired of letting them control the narrative while I hid in my depressing apartment eating donuts and feeling sorry for myself. Then I'll record the conversation, I said. Ohio is a one-party consent state. Whatever she wants to tell me, I'll have proof of it. Gil shook his head but didn't argue. He knew that look on my face. I was done being the victim of this story. Grind Coffee was one of those aggressively hip places that served $15 avocado toast and played indie music just loud enough to be annoying. Tasha was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a large iced coffee and her phone face down in front of her. She looked nervous, which was interesting. Tasha never looked nervous. She was usually the type to walk into a room like she owned it, ready to cut down anyone who looked at her wrong. Today, she kept glancing around like she expected someone to jump out from behind the espresso machine. Porter, thanks for coming. She gestured to the chair across from her. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. I sat down, keeping my phone in my jacket pocket with the voice recorder running. What do you want, Tasha? She took a long sip of her coffee, clearly stalling. Look, what happened at the party? That was messed up. Ayla went too far. Is that an apology? Because if it is, you might want to work on your delivery. It's not an apology. It's a warning. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Ayla's planning something. She's not going to let what you did slide. What I did? I canceled a wedding to someone who publicly humiliated me. That seems pretty reasonable. You embarrassed her in front of everyone she knows. You made her look like an idiot on social media. She's not the type to forgive and forget. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Why are you telling me this? Last I checked, you were her best friend. Tasha's laugh was bitter. Best friend, right. Do you know what she said about me after the party? She blamed me for not stopping you. Said I should have seen it coming and warned her. Like I'm supposed to be her personal psychic. Interesting. Cracks in the friendship already. So this is about you being angry at Ayla, not about helping me. Maybe? Does it matter? The point is, she's up to something. She's been talking to some lawyer about getting money from you for emotional distress or something. And she's been spending a lot of time with Brent. There it was. Confirmation of what I'd already suspected. Brent, the trainer? You know about him? Tasha looked surprised. I figured it out. How long has it been going on? Months. Since before you guys got engaged. She was planning to dump you after the wedding, take half your stuff and run off with him. The engagement party thing was supposed to be her getting one last laugh before she moved on to phase 2. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the gut. She'd been planning to marry me just so she could divorce me and take whatever she could. The engagement party humiliation wasn't a moment of drunken, poor judgment. It was calculated. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked again. Tasha met my eyes for the first time since I'd sat down. "Because she's planning to destroy you. Completely. She wants to make sure you can never show your face in this city again. And honestly, after what I've seen her do to other people who crossed her, I think she might actually be able to pull it off." She stood up, leaving her half-finished coffee on the table. "Watch your back, Porter, and maybe consider leaving town for a while." I sat there for a long time after she left, processing what she'd told me. Ayla wasn't just angry about the engagement party. She was planning a systematic campaign to ruin my life. The social media posts were just the beginning. But Tasha had made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was the same pushover who'd sat quietly while his fiancée mocked him in front of a room full of people. She'd assumed I was going to run away and hide. She was wrong. I pulled out my phone and called Gil. "Change of plans. We're not just gathering information anymore." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Ayla wants a war, and I'm thinking it's time to give her one. The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you incredible freedom to maneuver." While Ayla was busy spinning her narrative about my mental health episode, to anyone who would listen, I was doing something she'd never expect from a boring municipal worker. I was learning everything there was to know about her new boyfriend. Brent Voss was not a smart man. This became apparent within about 5 minutes of scrolling through his social media presence. He posted constantly, documenting every meal, every workout, every profound thought that crossed his mind. His Instagram was a masterclass in narcissism, all flexing selfies and motivational quotes stolen from other people. But more importantly, he was careless. The kind of careless that comes from believing you're too charming and good-looking for consequences to apply to you. Elite Fitness was one of those expensive gyms that catered to people who wanted to be seen working out more than they actually wanted to work out. All glass and chrome and motivational posters with a juice bar that charged $12 for a protein shake. I'd signed up for a membership the day after my coffee meeting with Tasha, using the logic that knowing your enemy's territory was basic strategy. Brent was exactly what I'd expected. 6'2", artificially tan, with the kind of muscles that looked impressive but probably couldn't help you move a couch. He had that aggressive friendliness that personal trainers cultivate, the kind that makes you feel like you're his best friend right up until you realize he talks to everyone exactly the same way. "Porter, right?" He bounded over to me like an overeager golden retriever. "I'm Brent. I heard you're new here. Want me to show you around?" I'd been counting on his ego being bigger than his memory. Ayla had probably mentioned my name, but guys like Brent don't pay attention to details about their girlfriends' ex-fiancés. To him, I was just another middle-aged guy trying to get in shape. "That would be great," I said, matching his enthusiastic tone. "I'm trying to completely change my lifestyle. New apartment, new habits, new everything. I love that energy. What's your story, man? What made you decide to transform yourself?" "Ugly breakup. Fiancé left me for some personal trainer." I watched his face carefully as I said it, but there wasn't even a flicker of recognition. Figured I should probably work on myself before I get back out there. "Dude, that's rough. But you know what? Her loss, man. We're going to get you in the best shape of your life, and when she sees what she's missing, she's going to regret everything." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. Over the next 2 weeks, I became Brent's favorite new project. He loved having someone who hung on his every word, who asked for advice about everything from protein supplements to dating strategies. I played the role of the sad, recently dumped guy who was desperately trying to reinvent himself, and he ate it up. The thing about women, he told me one evening as we finished a workout, is they don't know what they want until you show them. Your ex probably thought she wanted some stable, boring guy, but what she really wanted was excitement, passion, someone who could challenge her. Is that what you did with your girlfriend? I asked innocently. Showed her what she really wanted? His chest puffed up with pride. Exactly. She was with this total loser before me. Some city worker who had zero ambition, zero personality. She was basically settling because she didn't think she could do better. But once she met me, he flexed his bicep unconsciously. Let's just say she realized what she'd been missing. I nodded along like this was profound wisdom instead of a confession to stealing my fiancée. That's amazing. She's lucky to have someone who could open her eyes like that. She knows it too. She's always telling me how much better her life is now, how much more exciting everything is. She even helped me start planning this new business venture. That got my attention. Business venture? Yeah, I'm opening my own place, high-end personal training studio, but also lifestyle coaching, social media consulting, maybe some supplement sales. She's got all these connections in PR and marketing. We're going to be like a power couple, you know? Both successful, both hot, both living our best lives. The pieces were clicking into place. Ayla wasn't just cheating with Brent. She was planning to use him as her entry into the fitness influencer world. She'd help him build his brand, he'd give her credibility in that space, and together, they'd create the kind of aspirational lifestyle content that generated serious money on social media. That sounds incredible, I said. When are you planning to launch? We're looking at spaces next month. There's this perfect spot downtown, but the rent is pretty steep. Ayla's been helping me figure out the financing. I bet she had. Probably with money she'd planned to get from our divorce settlement. You should come to the grand opening, Brent continued. It's going to be epic. We're planning this huge party, invite everyone, get some media coverage, really make a splash, you know? I wouldn't miss it, I said, and I meant every word. That night, I called Gil and filled him in on everything I'd learned. He listened without interrupting, which meant he was either taking this very seriously or planning an intervention. So let me get this straight, he said when I finished. You've been pretending to be friends with the guy who stole your fiancée, and now you're invited to the grand opening of his new business that she's helping him finance with money she planned to steal from you. That's a pretty accurate summary, yes. And you think this is a good idea because knowledge is power, Gil. The more I know about their plans, the better I can prepare for whatever they're planning to do to me. Or, Gil said slowly, you could just block them on social media, change your phone number, and move on with your life like a normal person. Where's the fun in that? Gil sighed, the sound of a man who'd been friends with me long enough to recognize when I'd made up my mind about something stupid. What do you need me to do? Remember your cousin Danny, the one who works in commercial real estate? Yeah, what about him? I need to know everything about the space Brent's looking at downtown. Lease terms, financial requirements, what kind of background checks they run on potential tenants. Porter, what are you planning? I thought about Ayla's Instagram post painting me as an unstable ex-fiancé, about Brent's casual dismissal of me as a total loser, about Tasha's warning that Ayla was planning to destroy my life completely. I'm planning to be reliable, I said, just like she always said I was. The next few days were a masterclass in the power of public records and social media carelessness. Brent's financial situation was even worse than I'd hoped. Despite his expensive lifestyle and constant posts about success, he was living paycheck to paycheck. His credit score was barely above subprime, and he had 2 previous business ventures that had failed spectacularly. The gym space he wanted was way out of his league financially. Even with Ayla's help, there was no way he'd qualify for the lease without a co-signer or a massive deposit. Which explained why Ayla had been so eager to marry me and then divorce me. She needed my assets to make their dream work. But the most interesting discovery came from Brent's own Instagram account. In his eagerness to document every aspect of his life, he'd been posting photos from inside Elite Fitness that clearly showed other members working out in the background. Members who probably hadn't consented to being featured in his social media content. I took screenshots of every violation I could find, then spent an evening researching Elite Fitness's membership agreement and privacy policy. Sure enough, there were strict rules about photography and social media use on the premises, rules that Brent had been violating multiple times per week for months. On Friday evening, I was at Elite Fitness for what I told Brent would be our last session before I went out of town for work. He'd been extra chatty, probably because Ayla had been filling his head with plans for their upcoming business launch. "I'm really going to miss our sessions, man," he said as we finished up. "You've made so much progress. Your ex is going to be so jealous when she sees the new you." "Actually, I was hoping to get one more good workout in. Would you mind if I use the sauna for a bit? I've never tried it, but I heard it's great for recovery." "Absolutely. I was actually planning to hit the sauna myself. We can hang out, talk about your goals for when you get back." Perfect. The sauna at Elite Fitness was one of those high-tech infrared units, all glass and chrome with digital controls. More importantly, it had an electronic lock that could be controlled from both inside and outside. We settled into the sauna, the temperature already climbing toward uncomfortable. Brent immediately launched into another monologue about his business plans, his voice echoing off the glass walls. "The key is vertical integration," he was saying. "Personal training, nutrition consulting, lifestyle coaching, social media management. We'll be like a one-stop shop for people who want to completely transform their lives." "Sounds like you've got it all figured out," I said, standing up. "I'm getting a little overheated. Going to step out for some water." "Yeah, good call. I'll probably do a few more minutes." I stepped out of the sauna and immediately pressed the external lock button. The electronic system engaged with a soft beep, sealing Brent inside the glass box. He noticed immediately, of course. First confusion, then mild concern, then growing panic as he realized the door wasn't going to open. "Porter? Porter, the door's stuck!" I leaned against the glass, my voice muffled but audible. "It's not stuck, Brent. It's locked." His face went through several interesting expressions as he processed what I'd just said. "What are you talking about? This isn't funny, man. Let me out." "In a minute. First, I want to tell you a story about a guy named Porter Kellor who was engaged to a woman named Ayla Derric. You might have heard of them." The color drained from his artificially tanned face. "Oh. Oh no. Oh yes. See, Brent, I know all about your little arrangement with my ex-fiancée. I know about the business you're planning to start with money she was going to steal from me. I know about the 6 months of lying and cheating and planning behind my back." He was starting to sweat now, and not just from the heat. "Porter, listen, I can explain." "No need to explain. I understand completely. You saw an opportunity and you took it, just like I'm doing right now." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "This is Brent Voss, personal trainer at Elite Fitness, currently locked in a sauna because he thought it would be fun to steal someone's fiancée and then mock them behind their back. Porter, please, let me out and we can talk about this like adults." "We are talking. You're just doing it from inside a very hot glass box." I checked the temperature display. 140 degrees and climbing. Don't worry, these things have safety limits. Probably. The panic in his eyes was beautiful. "What do you want?" "I want you to tell me exactly what Ayla's been saying about me. I want to know what she's planning. And I want to know every detail of this business venture you two have been cooking up." He looked around the sauna desperately, as if there might be another way out that he'd missed. There wasn't. She said you were boring, that you had no ambition, no excitement. She was planning to divorce you after a year or two and take half of everything. What else? She's been telling people you're unstable, that you have anger issues and she was afraid of you. She's building a case to make you look dangerous. The temperature hit 150 degrees. Brent was really sweating now, his perfectly styled hair starting to droop. And the business? It was her idea. She said she could get financing if she was married to someone with good credit and steady income. The plan was to marry you, use your assets as collateral, then leave you with all the debt when the business took off. I nodded thoughtfully. That's very thorough. I appreciate the honesty. Now let me out. One more thing. I want you to post something on your Instagram. Right now. What? I held up my phone, showing him a message I'd already typed out. You're going to post this exact statement, admitting that you've been violating Elite Fitness's privacy policy by posting photos of other members without their consent. You're going to apologize and promise to do better. That'll get me fired. That's the idea. Post it, or I'll post this video of you crying in a sauna because you got caught cheating with someone's fiancée. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone and copied my message word for word. The post went live to his 15,000 followers, complete with a humble apology and admission of wrongdoing. There, he said. Now let me out. I pressed the unlock button and the door swung open. Brent practically fell out of the sauna, gasping for cooler air. You're insane, he panted. No, I'm reliable. Just like Ayla always said. I gathered my gym bag and headed for the exit. Oh, and Brent, you might want to start looking for a new job. Something tells me Elite Fitness is going to be very interested in that Instagram post. I was halfway to my car when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Brent's post was already getting attention, and not the good kind. His followers were expressing shock and disappointment. Elite Fitness had commented asking him to contact management immediately. By the time I got home, the post had been shared dozens of times. Someone had tagged Elite Fitness's corporate account. The comment section was a disaster. And somewhere across town, Ayla was probably getting a very interesting phone call from her boyfriend about his evening at the gym. The war was officially on. Elite Fitness moved faster than I'd expected. By Monday morning, Brent's Instagram post had been screenshot and shared across multiple fitness community forums, and Elite Fitness had terminated his employment for violations of member privacy and company social media policies. The gym's official statement was professional but devastating, essentially blacklisting him from the local fitness industry. I knew this because I was still monitoring his social media accounts, watching his carefully constructed influencer persona crumble in real time. The man who'd been posting daily motivation content and lifestyle advice had gone completely silent. His follower count was dropping by the hundreds as words spread about what had happened. But the real entertainment was watching Ayla try to manage the crisis. She'd posted a vague Instagram story about supporting the people you love through difficult times, with a photo of her and Brent looking serious and thoughtful. The comments were a mix of concern from her followers and confusion from people who didn't know about their relationship. That's when I realized something important. Ayla had never publicly acknowledged that she and Brent were together. As far as her social media presence was concerned, she was still the sympathetic victim of her unstable ex-fiancé's breakdown. Admitting she'd been cheating would destroy the narrative she'd been building. I was thinking about this contradiction when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code as local. Porter, this is Marcus from Elite Fitness Management. We need to talk. Marcus turned out to be the general manager, a serious-looking guy in his 40s who clearly took the business side of fitness very seriously. We met at a coffee shop near the gym, and he got straight to the point. I know what you did to Brent Voss, he said without preamble. I kept my expression neutral. I'm not sure what you mean. The sauna incident, the Instagram post, the whole thing. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Look, I don't care about the personal drama between you and him, but what I do care about is that he'd been violating our member privacy policies for months, and nobody caught it until you forced his hand. That sounds like an internal management issue. It is, and we're grateful you brought it to our attention, even if your methods were unconventional. He slid a business card across the table. We're looking for someone to help us audit our social media compliance and member privacy protocols, someone who understands both the technical side and the human behavior side. Interested? I stared at the card. You're offering me a job? Consulting work. Good pay, flexible hours, and it would give you legitimate access to information about how fitness businesses operate. Might be useful knowledge to have. The implication was clear. Marcus knew exactly what I was doing, and he was offering to help. Whether it was because he genuinely appreciated my catching the privacy violations, or because he had his own reasons for wanting to see Brent fail, I didn't care. This was an opportunity. I'll consider it, I said, pocketing the card. Consider it quickly. I have a feeling you're going to need all the advantages you can get. He was right. That afternoon, I got a call from a lawyer representing Ayla. She was suing me for intentional infliction of emotional distress, related to the engagement party cancellation and seeking damages for the wedding expenses, lost income from the reputational harm I'd caused, and something called loss of consortium that I had to look up. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Hendricks, had a voice like broken glass and an attitude to match. Mr. Kellor, my client has been devastated by your erratic and vindictive behavior. The public humiliation you subjected her to has damaged her professional reputation and caused significant emotional trauma. She humiliated herself, I said calmly. I just canceled a wedding. You deliberately chose the most public and damaging way possible to end your relationship. That shows clear intent to cause harm. What it shows is that I have excellent timing and a solid understanding of contract law. Every vendor agreement was in my name, every deposit came from my account, and I had every legal right to cancel those services. There was a pause. We're prepared to settle this matter quietly if you're willing to be reasonable. Define reasonable. A public apology acknowledging your inappropriate behavior, a payment of $50,000 to cover my client's damages, and a signed agreement that you'll refrain from any further contact or harassment. I laughed out loud. $50,000? For canceling my own wedding? Ms. Hendricks, I think you might be confused about who the victim is in this situation. Mr. Kellor, I strongly advise you to take this seriously. We have extensive documentation of your unstable behavior, witness statements about your threatening demeanor, and evidence of your ongoing harassment of my client and her associates. What harassment? The incident with Mr. Voss at Elite Fitness, for starters. Interesting. So Brent had told Ayla about our sauna conversation, and she'd decided to frame it as harassment rather than admit what he'd confessed to. That suggested she was still trying to maintain her victim narrative. Ms. Hendricks, I'm going to save you some time and embarrassment. I recorded my conversation with Mr. Voss. Every word, including his admission that he and your client had been planning to defraud me through marriage. If you'd like to proceed with this lawsuit, I'd be happy to introduce that recording as evidence. Another pause, longer this time. I'll need to discuss this with my client. You do that. And while you're at it, you might want to ask her about her relationship with Mr. Voss and how long it's been going on. Because if this goes to court, that's all going to become public record. The call ended abruptly. I sat back in my chair, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in weeks. Ayla had overplayed her hand. She'd assumed I'd be intimidated by legal threats and agree to pay her off quietly. Instead, she'd given me leverage. But I wasn't naive enough to think this was over. If anything, I'd just escalated things to a new level. Ayla would be furious that her legal strategy had backfired, and angry people make mistakes. I decided it was time to start making some proactive moves of my own. The consulting job with Elite Fitness turned out to be exactly what I needed. Marcus wasn't kidding about the access it provided. Within a week, I had detailed information about how the local fitness industry worked, who the major players were, and what kind of business practices were considered acceptable versus questionable. More importantly, I learned about the space Brent had been trying to lease for his new studio. The landlord was a guy named Rick Castellano, who owned several commercial properties downtown and had a reputation for being very particular about his tenants. He didn't just want people who could pay rent, he wanted businesses that would enhance the reputation of his buildings. I arranged to meet Rick under the pretense of potentially leasing space for a water treatment consulting business. He was exactly what I'd expected, a sharp-dressed guy in his 60s who'd probably seen every scam and sob story in the book. "What kind of consulting?" he asked as we walked through a vacant office space. "Municipal water systems, helping smaller cities optimize their treatment processes, reduce costs, improve efficiency. It's steady work, good profit margins, very professional clientele." "Sounds boring but reliable. I like boring and reliable." He gestured around the space. "This would work for an office-based business. Good location, professional building, reasonable rent." "Actually, I'm curious about something. I heard through the grapevine that someone was trying to lease the space on the third floor for a fitness studio. Personal training, lifestyle coaching, that kind of thing." Rick's expression darkened. "You heard about that, huh?" "Yeah, some guy named Voss came in here with big plans and bigger promises. Wanted to turn the space into some kind of influencer fitness studio." "What happened?" "What always happens with those types. Big dreams, no substance. Guy had terrible credit, no real business plan, and when I started asking serious questions about financing, he got evasive. Then I did some research on him and found out he'd just been fired from Elite Fitness for privacy violations." I nodded sympathetically. "Social media types, all flash, no fundamentals." "Exactly. Plus, his girlfriend kept trying to take over the conversation, talking about their brand and their vision. Red flags everywhere." Rick shook his head. "I told them to come back when they had real financing and a legitimate business plan. Haven't heard from them since." So Brent and Ayla's business dreams were already falling apart. Without his job at Elite Fitness, and with his reputation damaged, Brent couldn't get legitimate financing. And without my assets to use as collateral, Ayla couldn't make up the difference. But I wasn't content to just watch them fail. I wanted to accelerate the process. That evening, I created a new Instagram account under a fake name and started following fitness influencers in the Cleveland area. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Brent had been trying to rebuild his online presence with a new account, posting content about overcoming setbacks and rising above the haters. His follower count was pathetic compared to his old account, and the engagement on his posts was even worse. But he was trying to maintain the illusion that his career was still on track, probably to keep Ayla from panicking about their failed business plans. I spent the next few days documenting every exaggeration and outright lie in his posts. Claims about client transformations that had actually happened at Elite Fitness before he was fired. Photos of expensive equipment he claimed to own, but were clearly taken at other gyms. Testimonials from clients who were actually just random fitness accounts he'd reposted. Then I started reaching out to the real fitness influencers in Cleveland, the ones with legitimate businesses and actual credentials. I shared Brent's content with them, pointing out the stolen photos and fake testimonials. I framed it as a concerned citizen trying to protect the integrity of the local fitness community. The response was swift and brutal. Within days, Brent's new account was being called out across multiple platforms for stolen content and false advertising. Screenshots of his lies were being shared with thousands of followers. The Cleveland fitness community, which was apparently tighter-knit than I'd realized, had effectively blacklisted him. But the best part was watching Ayla try to distance herself from the disaster. Her social media presence, which had been subtly supporting Brent's comeback attempt, suddenly went quiet on anything fitness-related. She started posting more generic lifestyle content, probably hoping people would forget about her connection to him. That's when I knew it was time for the next phase of my plan. I called Gil and asked him to meet me at our usual bar, a dive place called Murphy's that served cheap beer and minded its own business. He found me in a corner booth, nursing a beer and looking at my phone. "You look pleased with yourself," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I am. Want to hear about my week?" I filled him in on everything: the consulting job, the lawyer's call, the real estate meeting, the social media campaign against Brent. Gil listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head. "So let me get this straight," he said when I finished. "In 1 week, you got Brent fired, destroyed his new business plans, ruined his social media comeback, and scared off Ayla's lawyer. That's a pretty accurate summary. And you did all of this without breaking any laws or actually hurting anyone." "Correct." Gil was quiet for a long moment, staring into his beer. "Porter, I have to ask, what's the end game here? How far are you planning to take this?" It was a fair question. When I'd started this whole thing, I'd been motivated by anger and a desire for some small measure of revenge. But somewhere along the way, it had become something else, something more systematic and comprehensive. They tried to destroy my life, Gil. Not just end our relationship, destroy me completely, make me look unstable, steal my money, ruin my reputation. They had a plan to systematically take everything I had and leave me with nothing. So you're returning the favor. I'm being reliable, thorough, systematic, all the things Ayla said she wanted in a partner. I took a long drink of my beer. The difference is, everything I'm doing is legal and based on truth. I'm not lying about them or framing them for things they didn't do. I'm just making sure people know exactly who they really are. Gil nodded slowly. "And when you're done, when they're completely ruined and everyone in town knows what they did?" I thought about that. "Then I'll be even. Will you? Or will you just be the kind of person who destroys people for revenge?" It was a sobering question, and one I didn't have a good answer for. But as I sat there thinking about it, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You think you're so smart, but this isn't over. Not even close. A." I showed the message to Gil. He read it and sighed. "Well, I guess that answers that question," he said. "She's not backing down. Neither am I. Then I guess we're going to see how this ends." I looked at the message again, feeling that familiar cold clarity settle over me. Ayla thought she could intimidate me with vague threats. She still didn't understand who she was dealing with, but she was about to learn. The text message from Ayla turned out to be the opening shot of a much more aggressive campaign. Over the next few days, I started noticing things. My supervisor at work mentioned that someone had called asking questions about my mental health and workplace behavior. The landlord of my apartment building got an anonymous tip that I was potentially dangerous and should be watched carefully. Someone left a bad review for my consulting work with Elite Fitness, claiming I was unstable and unprofessional. Ayla was trying to systematically destroy my reputation and livelihood. She'd moved beyond social media manipulation into active sabotage. The problem for her was that I'd spent the last month learning exactly how her world worked. I knew her tactics because I'd been watching her use them. More importantly, I knew her weaknesses. The first weakness was her desperation to maintain her online image. Despite everything that had happened, she was still posting regularly on Instagram, trying to project an image of success and happiness. But the content was getting more forced, more obviously staged. Her follower engagement was dropping as people lost interest in her drama. The second weakness was Brent. His career was in ruins, his reputation was destroyed, and he was becoming a liability to her brand. But she couldn't dump him publicly without admitting she'd been cheating, which would destroy the victim narrative she'd been building. The third weakness was money. Without Brent's income and without access to my assets, Ayla was burning through her savings trying to maintain her lifestyle. She was posting about expensive restaurants and shopping trips, but I could see the signs of financial stress in the details: older photos being reposted, cheaper locations being passed off as upscale, designer knockoffs being presented as authentic. I decided to attack all three weaknesses simultaneously. The first step was neutralizing her sabotage campaign. I called my supervisor and requested a meeting to discuss the concerning phone calls he'd been receiving. I came prepared with documentation, recordings of my conversations with Brent, screenshots of Ayla's social media posts, and a timeline showing how her narrative had evolved since the engagement party. "So, this is all about a bad breakup?" my supervisor asked after I'd explained the situation. "It's about someone trying to destroy my career because I refuse to be financially exploited," I corrected. "I have evidence that she was planning to defraud me through marriage, and now she's retaliating because her scheme failed." My supervisor, a practical man named Dave who'd been with the city for 20 years, listened to the recordings and read through the evidence with growing amazement. "Porter, this is like something out of a movie. Are you sure you're not exaggerating any of this? Everything I've shown you is documented and verifiable. The question is whether the city wants to be dragged into a personal vendetta by someone who's trying to manipulate them into firing a good employee." Dave nodded thoughtfully. "I'll make some calls. If anyone else contacts us about you, I'll refer them to our legal department. And Porter, maybe document everything that happens from now on. This woman sounds like she's not going to give up easily." The second step was accelerating Brent's downfall. His new Instagram account was struggling, but he was still trying to maintain some kind of online presence. I decided to help him fail more spectacularly. Using my fake account, I started engaging with his posts in ways designed to expose his lies. When he posted a transformation photo claiming to show a client's progress, I reverse-searched the image and found the original source, a stock photo from a supplement company's website. When he posted about his new training facility, I geotagged the location and revealed it was just a corner of a public park where he was training clients illegally. But the real coup came when he posted about a major sponsorship deal with a local supplement company. I called the company directly, identified myself as a journalist doing a story about fitness influencer marketing, and asked about their relationship with Brent Voss. "We've never heard of him," the marketing manager told me. "We don't work with individual trainers, only established fitness facilities." I screenshot that conversation and sent it anonymously to several fitness bloggers in Cleveland. Within hours, Brent was being called out for fake sponsorship claims. His credibility, already damaged, was completely destroyed. The third step was the most complex. I needed to expose Ayla's financial desperation without making it obvious that I was behind it. I started by researching her spending patterns through her social media posts. She was still posting about expensive purchases and luxury experiences, but the timing was suspicious. Designer handbags that appeared in multiple posts weeks apart, suggesting she was borrowing or renting them. Restaurant photos that were clearly taken during lunch hours but posted as dinner dates, indicating she was going to cheaper lunch menus and pretending they were expensive dinners. More telling were the subtle changes in her living situation. Her apartment, which had always been featured prominently in her posts, was appearing less frequently. When it did appear, certain expensive items that had been regular fixtures, artwork, furniture, electronics, were missing. I confirmed my suspicions by checking public records. Ayla had taken out a personal loan 3 weeks after our engagement party ended. A big one, the kind you only take when you're facing a serious cash flow problem. But I needed a way to make this information public without it being traced back to me. That's when I remembered Tasha. Ayla's former best friend had been noticeably absent from recent social media posts. Their falling out after the engagement party seemed to have been permanent, which meant Tasha probably had inside information about Ayla's current situation. I created a new fake social media account and reached out to Tasha with a simple message. "Heard Ayla's been struggling since the breakup. Is she doing okay?" The response came back within an hour. "Struggling is putting it mildly. Girl's broke and too proud to admit it. Still pretending everything's perfect while she's probably eating ramen every night." I pushed a little further. "That's rough. I always thought she had money." "She did, until she spent it all trying to finance Brent's failed business ideas. Now she's stuck with him because she can't afford to be single." Perfect. I screenshot the conversation and sent it anonymously to a Cleveland gossip blog that specialized in social media drama. The blog didn't mention names, but anyone who knew Ayla would recognize the details. The post went live on a Friday afternoon with the headline, "Local Influencer's Perfect Life Falling Apart Behind the Scenes." It described an unnamed woman whose engagement had ended dramatically, who was now financially supporting an unemployed boyfriend while pretending everything was fine online. The comments section exploded. People started speculating about who it could be, and it didn't take long for someone to connect the dots. By Saturday morning, Ayla's name was being mentioned directly. That's when she made her biggest mistake yet. Instead of ignoring the gossip or addressing it maturely, Ayla went on the attack. She posted a long, rambling Instagram story denying the rumors and threatening to sue anyone who was spreading lies about her. She specifically mentioned the gossip blog and demanded they retract their story. The blog responded by posting a follow-up article titled, "Influencer Threatens Legal Action Over Gossip Post," which included screenshots of Ayla's threats and made the whole situation much more public. Within days, the story had been picked up by other local media outlets. Not because it was particularly newsworthy, but because Ayla's reaction had made it newsworthy. Her attempt to suppress the story had amplified it instead. The coverage was devastating. Photos from her social media were analyzed and picked apart. Financial experts weighed in on the signs of hidden money problems. Other influencers distanced themselves from the drama. But the worst part for Ayla was that the coverage forced her to make a choice. Either admit that her perfect life was a facade, or double down on the lies and risk being exposed even more thoroughly. She chose to double down. Ayla posted a series of Instagram stories showing expensive purchases, luxury experiences, and professional photo shoots. She was clearly spending money she didn't have to maintain the illusion of success. Each post dug her deeper into debt, while proving that the gossip blog had been right about her financial desperation. The final blow came when someone leaked photos of her and Brent at a discount grocery store, clearly using coupons and buying generic brands. The photos were taken from a distance and were probably meant to be harmless, but in the context of her recent luxury posts, they were damning evidence of her deception. The Cleveland social media community, which had been following the drama with growing interest, turned on her completely. Comments on her posts became increasingly skeptical and mocking. Her follower count started dropping rapidly. Brands that had been considering working with her quietly backed away. And through it all, I watched from the sidelines, documenting everything and preparing for whatever desperate move she would make next. I didn't have to wait long. On a Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was Gil, and he sounded worried. "Porter, you need to get down here right now. Ayla and Brent are at Murphy's, and they're asking questions about you." Murphy's was our regular bar, the place where Gil and I had planned most of this campaign. If they were there, it wasn't a coincidence. "What kind of questions?" "They're trying to get information about your schedule, where you live now, what you've been up to. They're telling people you've been stalking them, and they're afraid for their safety." I felt that familiar cold clarity settle over me. Are they talking to anyone who knows me? That's the thing. They seem to know exactly who to talk to, like they've been watching you, learning your routine. Which meant this wasn't a random fishing expedition. They'd been planning this, probably as a way to build a case for harassment or stalking charges. Get witnesses to testify that I'd been obsessing over them, create a pattern of threatening behavior, maybe even provoke me into doing something stupid in public. "I'm on my way," I said. "Porter, maybe you should stay away. Don't give them what they want." "Gil, they came to my place. They're trying to turn my friends against me. This isn't about avoiding confrontation anymore." I hung up and grabbed my keys. It was time to end this thing once and for all. The drive to Murphy's took 15 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I used the time to think through what I was walking into and what I wanted to accomplish. Ayla and Brent were desperate, which made them dangerous but also careless. If I played this right, I could turn their desperation against them. But if I played it wrong, I could end up arrested or worse. Murphy's was exactly as I'd left it the week before, dimly lit, sparsely populated, and minding its own business. I spotted Ayla and Brent immediately, sitting at a table near the back, talking intensely with Jerry, one of the regulars who'd known me for years. I walked over calmly, my hands visible, my expression neutral. "Jerry," I said, nodding to the regular. "Ayla, Brent, I heard you were looking for me." The reaction was immediate and telling. Jerry looked relieved to see me, like he'd been uncomfortable with whatever conversation he'd been having. Brent tensed up, his hand moving instinctively toward his phone, and Ayla's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, and then something that might have been fear. "Porter," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "we were just telling Jerry how concerned we are about your recent behavior." "What behavior is that?" "The stalking, the harassment, the way you've been obsessing over us since the engagement ended." I looked at Jerry, who was clearly uncomfortable being in the middle of this. "Jerry, what exactly did they tell you I've been doing?" "They said you've been following them around town, taking pictures, trying to sabotage Brent's business," Jerry said reluctantly. "That's interesting." "Brent, when exactly did I follow you around town?" Brent's jaw tightened. "You know what you did. The gym incident, the social media harassment, all of it. The gym incident where you confessed to stealing my fiancée and planning to defraud me? That incident?" "I never said that." I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my recordings. "Would you like me to play the audio? Because I have the whole conversation saved." Ayla's eyes widened. "You recorded him without his consent? That's illegal." "Actually, Ohio is a one-party consent state. Recording conversations you're part of is completely legal." I looked around the bar, noting that several other patrons were now paying attention to our conversation. "But I'm curious, Ayla. If you're so concerned about illegal behavior, should we talk about your plan to commit marriage fraud?" "That's not what happened." "No? Then explain to Jerry here what your relationship with Brent was while we were engaged. Explain how long you'd been planning to leave me. Explain the business venture you were going to finance with my assets." The bar had gone quiet now. Even the bartender was listening, probably wondering if he should call the police or just let this play out. Ayla stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "We don't have to listen to this. Come on, Brent." But Brent didn't move. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Ayla, maybe we should just go." "No, I'm tired of him getting away with this." She turned back to me, her voice rising. "You want to know the truth, Porter? Fine. Yes, I was seeing Brent before we broke up. Yes, I was planning to leave you, because you're boring and pathetic, and I settled for you because I thought I couldn't do better." The bar was completely silent now. Even the jukebox seemed to have stopped playing. "But you know what?" Ayla continued, her voice getting louder and more shrill. "I was wrong. I could do better. I did do better. Brent is everything you're not: successful, exciting, ambitious. And if you can't handle that, if you have to stalk us and harass us and try to ruin our lives because you can't accept that I chose someone better than you, then you're even more pathetic than I thought." She was breathing hard now, her face flushed with anger and adrenaline. The entire bar was staring at her, and she seemed to realize for the first time that she'd just confessed to everything I'd been accused of lying about. I looked around at the faces staring back at us: Jerry, the bartender, the other patrons, all of whom had just heard her admit to cheating, lying, and planning to defraud me. "Brent," I said calmly, "is this really the woman you want to tie your future to? Someone who just publicly admitted to being a cheater and a fraud?" Brent was looking at Ayla like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "Ayla, what are you doing? I just told the truth. Something neither of you seems capable of." "You just destroyed both of us," Brent said quietly. "Everyone in here heard you. Everyone in here knows what we did." Ayla looked around the bar, finally realizing what had happened. Her public meltdown had accomplished more damage to her reputation than months of my careful campaign. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked conviction now. "Yes, it is," I said. "It's been over since you decided to humiliate me at our engagement party. Everything that's happened since then has just been the consequences of that choice." I turned to Jerry and the other patrons. "I apologize for bringing this drama into your evening. Drinks for everyone are on me." As I walked to the bar to settle up, I could hear Ayla and Brent arguing in increasingly desperate whispers behind me. By the time I'd paid the tab and turned around, they were gone. Jerry came over to the bar and shook his head. "Porter, I've known you for 10 years. I never believed what they were saying, but I had to listen to be polite." "I appreciate that, Jerry. And I'm sorry you got dragged into this." "Are you kidding? That was better than cable TV." He grinned and raised his beer. "Here's to dodging bullets, my friend." I raised my own beer and smiled. "Here's to being reliable." Outside in the parking lot, Gil was waiting by my car. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it. 3 months ago, I'd been engaged to a woman who saw me as a meal ticket and a safety net. Tonight, that same woman had publicly destroyed herself trying to hurt me. "I feel like myself again," I said.